Chapter 17 covers two kingdoms of life, the plant kingdom and the fungi kingdom. The first video of this chapter will cover the plant kingdom. Now, sections 1 through 13 of chapter 17 cover the plant kingdom. Now, characteristics of plants. Plants are multicellular. Plants are photosynthetic. Plants have leaves covered with a thin layer of wax known as a waxy cuticle. Plants have an alternation of generations life cycle involving a sporophyte and a gametophyte stage. Now, in section 2, it's an overview of plant phylogeny. The entire kingdom of plants can be divided into two major categories, non-vascular plants and vascular plants. We will discuss the bryophytes or true mosses in this group. The rest of the plant kingdom are vascular plants. Now, among the vascular plants, we can subdivide further. Those without seeds versus those with seeds. And the phylum names are in blue here. Under vascular plants with seeds, we can subdivide this further into gymnosperms and angiosperms, again with phylum names. Now, I have things written in here that I will refer to throughout the video. Now, plant life cycle is right here. All plants alternate between a sporophyte and a gametophyte stage. The sporophyte is diploid, the gametophyte is haploid. Now, the sporophyte is called the sporophyte because it makes spores. Now, the spores are haploid, which means that the process of producing them is meiosis, dividing the number of chromosomes in half. The spore becomes the gametophyte stage. The gametophyte is also haploid. Gametophytes make gametes, eggs and sperm. Now, because gametes are haploid and the gametophyte is also haploid, meiosis is not needed here. That was taken care of back there. Mitosis occurs here. Fertilization, the union of gametes, gives us a diploid zygote or fertilized egg, which becomes the sporophyte stage. Now, starting from section 4, we discuss the non-vascular plants, or collectively the bryophytes. The phylum Bryophyta are the true mosses. Now, mosses have a dominant gametophyte stage. Mosses use spores for dispersal, and they have flagellated sperm. Now, this little drawing shows a gametophyte moss growing in the dirt, and it'll produce eggs and sperm. The sperm literally have to swim to the egg, requiring moisture for fertilization. The fertilized egg will occur, say, right here, and then you'd have this diploid sporophyte growing out, produce haploid spores by meiosis. The spores fall into the dirt and make new mosses. Now, sections 5 through 12 are the vascular plants. In all vascular plants, the sporophyte is the dominant stage. Okay, in all vascular plants. Now, among the seedless vascular plants, we have the phylums Lycophyta, which are the club mosses, and the Pterophyta, which are the ferns and whisk ferns and horsetails. Now, like their cousins before them, they still use spores for dispersal. They still have flagellated sperm requiring environmental moisture for fertilization. Now, fern life cycle detailed here. The fern is the sporophyte stage. These little structures underneath the leaves are called sori, S-O-R-I. They release spores. The spores fall into the dirt, and they become these tiny little heart-shaped gametophyte stages, which produce gametes. The sperm will have to swim to the egg, and then you get a new sporophyte stage, just like you did up here, but the difference is the sporophyte grows into a fern, and the gametophyte goes away. Now, among the seed plants, we have section 7 through 12, where they disperse using seeds instead of spores. So with the seed plants, the seeds, which is really this part of the life cycle instead of that part. So, seeds for dispersal, unflagellated sperm, which means they don't need environmental moisture. They can fertilize in a dry environment, and they pollinate. In fact, the pollen grain is the male gametophyte stage. That's how tiny it is. Now, gymnosperm means naked seed. There are 4 groups of gymnosperms. The coniferophyta, which are pine trees and cedar and things like that, cypress trees. Cycadophyta include the cycads or sago palms. The ginkgophyta has 1 species, Ginkgo biloba, and the netophyta, which has a number of species out in dry environments such as ephedra, which is nicknamed Mormon tea. Now, the pine life cycle is shown here. We have the pine cones, which are the seed cones. We have the little thin pollen cones. The seed cone is where the sporophyte makes the megaspore, which becomes the female gametophyte inside the seed cone. The smaller microspore is made in the pollen cone, and the microspore becomes the male gametophyte, and the pollen cone releases pollen. Pollen goes everywhere, but some of it gets into the seed cone. Then fertilization can take place. Then you have the seeds drop from the seed cone. Now, the latter part here is the angiosperms, or flowering plants, one phylum, the Anthophyta. Now, parts of the flower. The center portion of the flower is referred to as the carpel, also known as pistil. You can use either phrase here. The top of it is the stigma, this portion is the style, and this lower portion is the ovary. This is the stamen, and the tip of it is the anther, and this is the filament. These are petals, these are sepals. Now, the ovary of the flower operates in a similar fashion to the seed cone of the pine tree. You have the megaspore produced in here. It becomes the female gametophyte in here. Female gametophyte produces the egg in here. Fertilization happens in here. The seeds come from here. Now this is the part of the flower that releases the pollen. The pollen actually makes its way to the stigma and will grow a pollen tube and will transfer sperm to the egg down here. Now, once this fertilization happens, the ovary of the flower will ripen to become the fruit. The fruit protects and disperses the seeds. All fruits come from flower ovaries. So, protection and dispersal of seeds, the features of a fruit in nature have everything to do with how it's dispersed, whether it's edible, whether it blows in the wind, or whatever. Likewise, going back to pollination, the characteristics of a flower in nature have everything to do with how it is pollinated. Now, flowering plants are the most abundant plants around in terms of the planet. They are the important ones for us. Nearly all species of agriculturally important plants that we eat and use for a variety of ways are flowering plants. And this concludes the first video.